Hello everyone and welcome to Yorkshire Gamer, and today I'm going to do a book review for you, and this is a book published by Helion from their Musket to Maxim range, book number 23 in that series, and this is called Victorian Crusaders, British and Irish Volunteers in the Papal Army 1860-70 by Nicholas Schofield. And if you follow this channel regularly, you'll know that this book will have been of interest to me. So we're going to have a quick flick through it, see what the contents are, give you a flavour of the book, and I appreciate it's a very niche subject, but it's one that's dear to my heart, so hopefully you'll enjoy this video. Liverpool, Friday the 14th of October 1870, around noon. The steamship India anchored in the Mersey after a difficult journey from the Italian port of Livorno, or Leghorn as it was often called by British travellers. The ship was new, having only been launched that February, but it was not designed for luxury travel. The passengers had slept on mattresses on the lower deck and found themselves soaked by the waves penetrating through the hatchways. Although some had admired the beautiful blue waters and picturesque coastal villages of the Mediterranean, food was insufficient, and few had slept during the strong gales on the Wednesday night. All on board must have been relieved when the ship pulled into harbour. Once anchored, the quarantine flag was briefly hoisted, as required by customs, and then a steam tug was seen heading in its direction. The eager-eyed standing on the deck might have spotted the distinguished figure of Rudolph William Basil Fielding, Earl of Denbigh, Catholic convert and chairman of the English Papal Defence Committee. There were others too, including the familiar faces of comrades in arms who had arrived by land a few days previously. For the India had no ordinary cargo. On board were members, ex-members, if one to be pedantic, of the Pontifical Zouaves, a unit raised in 1861 to defend Pope Pius IX and his temporal power. If their faces were melancholy, it was because their cause had just received a crushing blow. Rome had fallen to the numerically superior Italian forces on the 20th of September. The Eternal City was now the capital of the Kingdom of Italy, and the Pope a self-declared prisoner of the Vatican. Hope you enjoyed that. That was the first couple of paragraphs of the prologue to this book, and I have to say that I'm very impressed with the way that this book has been written. A lot of historical books are very dry, full of information, but very, very dryly written. So I read that prologue out because I enjoyed the style of this that Nicholas Schofield has written, and it's an enjoyable read. The book is extremely good. The Mr. Schofield had studied at the Venerable English College in Rome, so he's got a bit of an insight into the Vatican, which is fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll go and have a look through the book itself now. So this is the book itself, lovely front cover. The painting is of a famous Papal Zouave called Peter Jong. I believe he was from the Netherlands, and he famously took on and killed 14 Garibaldi during a fight at a battle I'm afraid I can't pronounce. And that's one thing, do be ready for this. My Italian pronunciation is appalling during the course of this. One thing I will say is that the quality of the book that you will receive from Helion is considerably better than this one. This one, would you believe, has been read. I know it's a bit of a strange thing for people to do book reviews and actually read the book, but I have done. So there we go. So I'll have a quick look through the contents, and we can see that, as usual, there's a sort of a brief history of the Risorgimento and the people who were for it, the people who were against it, and some brief history of the Papal States themselves. Throughout the book, it's illustrated with a variety of black and white and colour photographs. There's a chat about the Papal States Army, And then we go into a history of the Battalion of St Patrick, and they're famous for their green and yellow uniforms, and we'll talk a little bit about those at the end of this video. It's a really nice section. Very little information in the English language about these sorts of things, and the Risorgimento, so it's an absolute godsend for me to have this book to hand. Goes through all the problems in Ireland and raising of the Irish troops for the St Patricks Battalion, and their reasons for going, their journeys across. You can see there a nice colour photograph of the uniforms. So that's a great little section there. Then we move on into more of the history of the 1860 campaign, and then on to the Battle of Castelfidardo. Now, that could be anything similar to that, but you know what I mean. And this is the main battle in 1860 in which the papal forces are involved. And if we flick through here, we've got a lovely map. It's fairly basic, but it gives you an idea of the battle itself. The papal troops were extremely outnumbered in this particular battle, and another picture here of the battle at its height. One of the things that's very interesting about these photographs in here, showing pictures of battles at the time, is that the formations seem to be quite tightly packed, but in sort of company strength. And one thing about the St Patrick's Battalion is that it never fought as a battalion. It was split off into companies, and if I remember correctly, only either 2 or 3 companies were at this particular battle. So another lovely colour photograph there. And then it talks about the last stand at Ancona, which was the last fighting of that particular conflict. And then we have the sort of the return home of the St Patrick's Battalion before we then move on to the second unit that we're talking about, the Pontifical Zouaves. The St Patrick's Battalion is only around for less than a year, very, very short space of time, and it kind of morphs into the Pontifical Zouaves, and they're around for, as you can see from there, 9 years. And once again, we've got a brief history of the unit, the recruitment into it. Then we move on to 1867, and this is part of my current project to do the Battle of Mentana. And there's a chapter on here which is great, lots of information in there, pulled together a lot of stuff that I've got from bits and pieces all over the place. So this is really, really great for me. Picture of Mentana town there. Anyone fancies building that for me for free, please get in contact and we'll do a joint battle. I'll do the troops, you do the terrain. Job's a good one. Nice little, again, simplified. Maybe wargamers might want a little bit more detail, but it gives you a very good idea of the battle itself. The 2 main columns, one of papal troops, one of French troops, the attack and the flanking move by Papal Zouaves. Very, very useful there. Then we've got lots of pictures, particularly this one here. I've not seen this one before, and it says it's from a private collection. And we've got Garibaldi in the middle there, if you can see him. Some colour photographs here. Once again, you can see how everything is grouped quite closely. You know, most things you would read would suggest a looser file order at this time, but we've got what appear to be companies marching together quite closely. If you weren't aware, it was the first ever use of the chassepot rifle for the French. The chasseurs appeared, the light infantry, would you believe, didn't have the chassepot, but the 4 battalions of French infantry did at the battle. So once the battle's over, it goes into the histories of individual recruits. There's 1 or 2 Rileys in there as well, as you would expect. In fact, the commander of the unit was called Major O'Reilly, and talks about motivation. One of the things that always fascinates me about history and the wars that we look at, the wars that we study, is why people fought. Regardless of what the cause was, why did that person go and fight in that particular conflict? So that's extremely interesting for me, and I'm sure for you as well. And as we go along towards the end of the battle, we talk about the final conquest of Rome, and it being turned into, as we heard in that initial prologue that I read, the capital of Italy. And 20th of September 1870, you can see there on the left a picture of the Italian troops entering a breach in the walls at the Porta Pia in Vatican City, in Rome. And there's a staged photograph there. It does look quite staged as well, doesn't it? So it goes all the way to the end of that, and then there's a nice little chapter at the end talking about what some of the Zouaves did after returning home. Not just UK and Ireland, there was a very large contingent from Canada, about 500 I think, or maybe even more came from Canada. And then at the end we've got an appendix with a cast of characters, a full list of the English and Welsh Zouaves, including a Bernard Riley, which is very nice of old Bernard there to turn up. At the end we've got some nice brief descriptions for a wargamer. For somebody who's not bought this book as a wargamer, then it would probably be detailed, but for us wargamers it's fairly basic. But this picture here of the officer in the St Patricks Battalion is very, very nice. Another picture of the officer of the Zouaves in their slightly different uniform, and some pictures there, some colour pictures of actual Zouave uniforms. At the back we've got the orders of battle for Castelfidardo and Mentana, which are extremely useful for me, and then a list, as you would expect, of biography at the end. So what am I going to say about this book? Obviously I'm very, very interested in this period of history. I really enjoyed reading this book, and I'm not just saying that because it's something I'm interested in. I actually enjoyed reading this book, which for some historical books, as I said right at the start, you can't always say that. It can be a little bit dry and dull, but I think Mr. Schofield's done a good job in bringing this book to life, and I have to say I'm very impressed. Highly recommended. I'll put a link in the show notes for you to pick up a copy of this from Helion. I'm not on any commission or anything like that. Mr. Charles Singleton might buy me a coffee. That's about as much as I want. I'm just happy to share stuff with you that I like and I enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed that. A quick review of Victorian Crusaders, British and Irish Volunteers in the Papal Army 1860 to 70 by Nicholas Schofield. Lion Hearts of Young Italy, field where none died in vain. Beardless boys on famine gaunt, corpses along the plain. Did not enough of you die on the field where none died in vain? Lion heart of young Italy. Fields where death was glory, blood that gushed not in vain, when the deadly rife of France crashed with its iron rain. Near the pine-dotted slopes of Tivoli, the triumph is with the slain. Lion heart of young Italy. Noble error, if error, to make their fatherland one. Through her 25 centuries, Rome counts no worthier son. That he who let them to die, were death and triumph were one. Lion hearts of young Italy.